Some of my favourite games take complex genres and strip them down to their barest essentials. Many of these experiences are often onboarding games aimed at a slightly younger audience. 1999's LEGO Rock Raiders was one of the first PC games I played, and it was a fantastic entry into the usually demanding RTS genre without minimising what made the concept so appealing. It infused base building with the joy of building LEGO sets, and simplified action commands so that stripping dungeons for gemstones was simple enough for a kid to understand. It also featured the ability to change the behaviour of the titular Rock Raiders to prioritise tasks, which let those who were feeling confident better optimise their workers. Rock Raiders, by the way, has recently been remade by fans as Mining Miners, and made available for free if you're keen to try it out for yourself. But the coolest titles are ones that found their own identity after minimising complexity from their genres. A great example is Mario Kart. Although a fan should want to progress onto serious driving games like Gran Turismo after earning their gold cups, Nintendo's mascot racer has something those games don't: platform-inspired racetrack design and fantastical weaponry. The same is true for Pikmin in the RTS genre. Each game is about unit management, and it also blends elements of character action and exploration. On the most extreme end of this exercise is the mobile game Brains, that turns a game like Crusader Kings into a story generator inspired by Tinder. The design of these games is often informed by hardware, like the Super Nintendo's processing power or the iPhone's big touchscreen. But rather than make these titles complex when more sophisticated hardware was available, developers instead honed in on their particular identities. Pikmin 4, for example, added base building and even managing multiple units simultaneously, as is expected of the RTS genre. But in Nintendo fashion, found ways to make these new elements fit within Pikmin's unique identity. I've previously made an entire video about games that did this exercise for city builders, turning them into small arcade titles that score a player's urban planning. The game I'd like to tell you about today does something similar, but for a genre I once thought completely inapproachable: the 4X. Exemplified by games like Stellaris, these are grand strategy games set in outer space. A player is ultimately responsible for managing an empire that could stretch across light years, and for fighting wars that could change the shape of space in an instant. In this previous video, I lamented the sheer complexity of managing a modern metropolis, so it's maybe not a surprise that I've been terrified by the prospects of doing that on a galactic scale. Fortunately, there has been one game that could serve to be my onboarding into the genre, by stripping it down to its barest essentials, whilst ultimately being an engaging puzzle to solve. That game is Slipways, the first title from Polish developer Jacob Wasilewski. Slipways describes itself as a combination of a puzzle and grand strategy wargame, though one that streamlines out the conflicts and micromanagement to focus entirely on building a trading empire across the stars. How a player does so is simple. They start by pulling satellites from the centre of a playing field and ping new planets into view. Each body has a particular makeup, suitable for either housing, farming, mining, or another function of trade. The player's job is then to establish self-sustaining ecosystems on these planets that'll benefit the others. For example, mining resources require workers, and those workers will require food or computer parts. Those mined resources can go back into computer parts, or even robots that maintain crops for food. It's a simple puzzle of call and response, made trickier by managing a number of different operations. How these planets are linked is by the player drawing a line from one to the other, creating the titular Slipways. But they can't be stretched too far, requiring players to be clever with their resources. As links are tightened, new satellites can be pulled from established colonies to discover more planets and build the empire further. However, too many plays will turn the stars into a web of chaos. Spinning plates becomes difficult as planets and previously laid slipways get in the way of new paths, requiring a player to not be too tight-knit. At the end of each round, points are tallied up into a high score, grading players on how fast and successful their empire was. And it's all punctuated by a zoom out that shows just how big your web of planets grew. As someone with no experience of 4X strategy or war games, I came into Slipways with zero preconceptions. The developer has stated that the game was born from a love-hate relationship with those genres, citing their time investment and barrier of entry being off-putting to new players. Slipways then started as a potential entry point, but ended up becoming its own blend of management and puzzle solving. Initially, Slipways was prototyped on the Pico 8, whose low technical overhead and lack of player inputs meant the game would have to stay simple and easy to grasp. Apart from the obvious graphical overhaul, the full-fledged version of Slipways stays true to the vision of the Pico 8 original, and uses it as a basis for new complementary mechanics. If players invest in laboratories that generate insight, they gain a currency that can be used on research. These technological breakthroughs can make colonies on once uninhabitable rocks, make slipway technology more powerful, or, well, my favourite, allow a player to blow up meddlesome rocks that get in the way of slipways, creating some additional credit. This tech tree never becomes overbearing, and a player isn't forced to use it early on. Slipways is designed to be replayed often, to try out its different combinations of tech in different sectors of the galaxy in pursuit of getting a high score. Slipways is designed to be simple to pick up, but under light depth. As mentioned earlier, drawing lines between planets is made more challenging due to the fact that they cannot intersect. Players are still required to weigh their decisions, even if the act of making these decisions is simple. It's a near-perfect design for a game that should be a genre entry point. And I like Slipways a lot. But the thing is, I don't consider it training wheels for a supposedly better game. For one thing, its approachable design has given it a tone quite unlike those titles. By eliminating the necessity for fighting wars, Slipways promotes a somewhat enlightened vision of the future. I say somewhat because it's one built on generating profits. Slipways' cast of characters are all different alien races, who have come together to form a galactic council. Some encourage a player to build towards enlightenment, where the trading empire is necessary to fund scientific breakthroughs for the betterment of others. On the other end, there are those who'd put profit above all else, to the point they'd destroy potentially habitable planets if they were in the way of trade routes. However, almost all these races understand that money makes these worlds go round. Resources aren't completely renewable, and so there has to be a cost to progress. Although not an outright political game, Slipways requires a player to have their allegiances, as building reputation with one of these council races leads to bigger benefits. The high score system is somewhat politically agnostic, as it doesn't put profit nor one particular race above any other. Points are derived from the number of planets in the Empire, its sheer size and its legacy, or what technological breakthroughs were made and how powerful certain planets became. What's most appealing to me is that these plays and the growth of a galactic empire can take less than an hour to happen. Where grand strategy games require a serious investment from a player, Slipways fits very neatly into small pockets of time. By having a high score driven system, there are definitive endpoints to each game, either after 25 in-world years have passed, or a player is ousted from their job for too many bad plays. Slipways would be an absolutely great mobile game, and I imagine it'd even be a perfect fit for the Steam Deck, due to its simple control scheme and shorter play sessions. As such, it's a better fit for me. Alongside OpenRCT2 and Mini Motorways, Slipways has been given a coveted shortcut on my desktop. Not only are they all easy to pick up and play, there's actually a want for me to hop in and put more time into them. In Slipways' case, it's become a perfect evening game where I can unwind by throwing out satellites and puzzling links between planets. One reason for its relaxed atmosphere is that mistakes aren't permanent. Slipways includes an undo button, allowing a player to roll back to a previous turn. It discourages staring at a monitor for hours looking for the perfect move. Instead, Slipways would rather a player have fun. There's no big end goal to work towards. Like the city puzzle games, Slipways isn't meant to be played infinitely. Eventually, something has to give, whether that's running out of resources or time to play. It's then my choice whether I want to play another round. And very often, I do. Jacob started with an entry point to 4X and war games in mind for Slipways, but eventually created something wholly unique. And what's lovely is that the game has found an audience beyond just strategy players. I previously had never played a 4X or Grand War game because I found their aesthetics and difficulty off-putting. Slipways wasn't the key to liking those games. Rather, it's just a brilliant game on its own merits. I don't want to compare Slipways too harshly to other games in its genre because it isn't meant to be a better or worse take on them, it's just a different one. There's always the risk that with oversimplifying a concept, you remove too much and eventually a player will see all the tricks available. It's one of the risks associated with games aimed at a younger audience, which are often watered down to avoid overwhelming players. But due to its randomized nature, Slipways can keep surprising me. But there may come a time where I'll have the desire to try something more complex because I'll overcome Slipways' skill ceiling. But for now, with my current sensibilities, I really gravitated towards this game. It's why I won't sell Slipways by saying, if you've always been interested in the genre, try this game first. Instead, I'll say, if you're looking for a space game that'll test your management and puzzle solving skills, and want an addictive title you can play for as little or as long as you want, then I heartily recommend Slipways. Slipways proves that there is a pathway for other developers to take genres with niche appeal and create satisfying puzzles out of them. There are other experiences I would love to see take on this model, especially those I've been too afraid to approach, such as competitive fighting games, first-person shooters, Defense of the Ancients likes. But if you know of any games that fit the bill, I'd love to hear about them in the comments below. Until next time, I've been James, and I'll see you all in the next upload.